Good afternoon and welcome to the ACSOM Bulletin. What happened when we won the league was immensely enjoyable. It was special. It is always the people who create the atmosphere. That love is incredibly deep. Those were the words of former Celtic manager Wim Jansen, who it has been announced has sadly passed away at the age of 75. Wim came to Celtic in season 1997-98, stopped to 10, won the League Cup in his time, and departed the club a Celtic legend. There is many people, Lawrence, in the folklore of Celtic history who have great affinities with the club after many years spent there. But in one season, Wim Jansen cemented that place in Celtic history and is fondly remembered by us all.
Yeah, without doubt, securing one in a row, delivering, the League Cup, signing some outstanding players for us, Larson, Reaper, Mahe, Burley, Jonathan Gold, it's quite a list of, his success, his signings. What I give back to is, although Liverpool put us out in Europe, it was a McManaman wonder goal, wasn't it? Celtic really went toe-to-toe with them. Him and Murdo, I don't think the relationship was the easiest between him and Jock and Fergus, but, between them, they delivered what the fans wanted, the league title. They delivered the first League Cup in 15 years, beating Dundee United at Poundland. In that final game, I think we all thought, I was up in Dunfermline, we thought we were going to win it then until Falconbridge struck, but to win it at Celtic Park was just so special, and what an atmosphere. I think he got a bit of the usual treatment that Celtic managers get when they come over, from the press being very parochial and kind of just not realising actually who the guy was. He's one of the guys that, what Cruyff said, is one of the few guys worth speaking to about football.
Yeah.
What asked was the Celtic Rangers game the most important game that he's been involved with in football, and he was able to answer, played in 2 World Cup finals. What do you think? He was the right man at the time. I think Jock Brown had Bobby Robson lined up, but McCann wanted a non-British manager to get away with from the emotional attachment, someone that could detach itself from that and handle the pressure. And although, it wasn't the best of starts, he delivered. And I see so many similarities with this season. It's not getting off to a good start, getting put out by Liverpool, get put out by Betis, losing to Betis but having a good performance, picking up the League Cup. He's signed Larson, we've now got Kyogo. But Jansen, I don't think anyone at Celtic's got anything, bad to say for him. Yeah, I think even McCann said when he left in that journey, he just said, look, he was a nice guy, it just didn't work out for him at Celtic.
Yeah, as you say, there's a lot of similarities that I think we'll probably come on to talk about in terms of Ange Postecoglou and Wim Jansen, just at the place who were in terms of the signings. You touched on their players coming in. Obviously, there was a big 3 departures in season 97-98 at the beginning of the season when the Free Amigos left the club. Something Wim Jansen spoke about in his most recent book, Lawrence, that he didn't know anything about when it signed the deal to come to the club. But as you say there, Johan Cruyff said that he was one of only 4 people in the world worth listening to talk about football. You've touched on the 2 World Cup finals he played in, runner-up in both. Football's a strange old game. A lot of Celtic fans first put their eyes on Wim Jansen Lawrence in the 1970 European Cup final when he played in a winning Feyenoord side, when he got his hands in the big cup. And all those years later, 27 years later, he rocked up to Celtic Park. But as you said, ultimately fulfilled his merit and the job and stopped to 10 and gave belief back to a lot of Celtic fans winning that league championship. Tommy had obviously came in. He'd won the first trophy in 6 years, that Scottish Cup against Airdrie. But to get that first league back after such a long hiatus was so important. And a lot of the foundations of the modern Celtic that we talk about, have been so successful in recent years, can be pointed back probably to a good part of what Wim Jansen put in place at the club, especially, as you say, with the signing of the King of Kings, which brought so much joy under Martin O'Neill in years to follow.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine a modern day Celtic without Henrik Larsson? What would the history have been like? But he he was just, he was just a really, really nice guy. You talk about giving belief back to the fans, but the players said that also, when that result against Liverpool, they kind of looked at each other and went, what, we're not a bad team. You hear Simon talking about it, Tom Boyd talking about it. They both speak about what a nice manager he was. He never swore or lost his temper with them. He was just a really nice guy. To put the first trophy in the bag that season was good as well. It was played over at Ibrox. Yeah. Got 3 goals, going on to win the league. I know we kind of started over the line almost, but there was, a lot of pressure to stop 2 in a row. And he delivered. But, whether you kind of... Some of the football maybe wasn't as attacking as it could have been. There was a bit of a contrast between him and Tommy's football, wasn't there? Tommy was all out attack and one was definitely a bit more cautious. But you know what? 2 trophies out of 3 in your first season, it takes some doing, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. 2 out of 3 ain't bad after all. You touched on Murdo McLeod, Lawrence, who was a real imperative part of that success. Again, referring back to his recent book, which came out not too long ago, a biography. If you've not checked that out, I would definitely suggest you do. There's a lot in there. There's a good bit in there about his time at Celtic. He speaks about that breakdown relationship with Fergus Lawrence. He said for half of the time he was there, he didn't really communicate with him and Jock Brown, but Murdo was basically the in-between guy that communicated between himself and the board at the time. Murdo, probably the man that knows Wim Jansen inside out. I think they've kept in touch ever since that partnership that they had at Celtic. But, as you say, Lawrence, he delivered in that one season. And I think it's a real mark of a man. Although the pressure was there, he dealt with it, he got it over the line. And for everything he's done for Celtic, we've got all our greats, Jimmy McGrory, Billy McNeil. But Wim Jansen does earn that legendary status for me, Lawrence, just because of the defining moment which he has in Celtic and putting the foundation in for the modern Celtic, as you said there. You couldn't imagine a modern day Celtic without Henrik Larsson. Obviously, Paul Lambert was a cracking player for many seasons too, and we're going to take the captain's armband under Martin O'Neill.
Yeah, he definitely joins the pantheon of Celtic greats, doesn't he? His signings, by and large, were amazing. I mean, Reaper, we were unlucky that we lost him to injury, but what a centre-half. He plucked Jonathan Gold from low-level football, and what season he went on to have. Stephen Mahey, touching Lambert. Henrik, Darren Jackson. It was just he had a great track record with signings. It was just, just devastating news, isn't it? You kind of think back to that day and just the outpouring of joy, fans invading the pitch. When you're at the end, you think early in the game, Larsson, shooting into the Rangers and just curls that one in, settles the nerves a bit. And it's George O'Boyle puts one wide for St Johnstone and then off up the wing and crossed into Harold Bratback to seal the title for us. And then it was just counting down the seconds till that final whistle.
Yeah, obviously too young to remember that game. I was born 2 years after it. But it's an important part of Celtic's history. Obviously, my dad was home and away that season following Celtic. Was at that game against St Johnstone. Was Freunden filming the week before it, the Falconbridge game, which you touched on, Lawrence. But so important to Celtic's history and his loss. Obviously we lost Dr. Joe last year. We've now lost Vim. In terms of living Celtic managers, there's not many actually kicking around. Obviously, kind of post 2000, I think. Liam Brady's obviously still there, so it's important to remember these guys and give them their place in Celtic history, especially a guy like Wim Jansen. We saw the outpouring of love and emotion for Joe Venglos when he passed away, and you can see it just from the comments there that the Celtic fans have such a great affection for Wim Jansen. Yeah,
I think he was the first that wasn't first manager not to be signed as a player. I think Brady was signed as player manager, wasn't he? So Jim was he just delivered when we needed someone to deliver to just get us the title back. He was able to do it. It changed from the all-out attacking football to what was really a formula that worked for us, wasn't it? Won the title. It's two trophies out of 3. what might have been. He walks away 2 days after we win the title. Obviously, him, Jock and Fergus, it just wasn't working. But you know what? Let's just say it worked for that magical season that, as you say, gave us much of the foundations of modern Celtic.
Yeah, absolutely, Lawrence. In terms of the crossover, it's something that I think a lot of people touched on at the beginning of the season when Ange Postecoglou came into the club. Obviously, someone who hadn't played for the club, similar to Wim Jansen, who came in with a great knowledge of football. Obviously, Ange, with his time in Australia and in Japan, his national team manager over in Australia, very successful club manager in Oz and in Japan, winning league championships in both countries respectively. And then that word that we were all using, Lawrence, of rebuild, as I touched on earlier on. But when we came into Celtic, Di Canio, Pierre Van Hooydonk and Georges Cadet left the club, something he didn't know anything about was happening. And he basically, he had to get his own guys in, which is what Ange is did. And then we've got the similarity of the League Cup, getting that in the bag early in the season. We've spoken about how important that could be to our own group of players and getting that over the line. And such an important season for Celtic. There's a lot of pressure in Celtic this season, and I think there is some similarities between 97, 98 and 21, 22.
Yeah, listen, without doubt, and always both managers, coming direct from Japan. Ange's signings have been good. He signs a talismanic striker and Kyogo. Performances in Europe that weren't expected, to play so well in spells against teams like Betis, and picking up the League Cup. But Wim, what a season, highs and lows, but he gave us that one in a row, didn't he? He stopped it, and he gave us Henrik.
Yeah, two massive things, two defining things in Celtic's history that will never be. I don't think can ever be underestimated. And tomorrow night we're going to be through at Tynecastle. Hopefully, a minute's applause or something arranged for that game, and then we can get a result in memory of Wim Jansen. But it's great to see all the comments coming in. Please do, if you've got any good stories about Wim, please stick them in. We'll read them out. But everyone at a Celtic State of Mind wants to pass on our very best wishes to Wim's family. We're also fighting about Murdo today. I know the players that played under him at Celtic. Lawrence, I wasn't on last Tuesday. I was on Thursday with JP and Paul, but I'm back. And one of the things I spoke about on Thursday, before he was even in a green and white jersey, was Matt O'Reilly. He did go in to sign that day. I was a wee bit worried that if he didn't sign, it'd be the old cut-up video and that would be me plastered everywhere. But thankfully, Matt O'Reilly's came in. He's another addition to our squad. Go right with this one. Would it be fair to put him straight into the starting 11 tomorrow night in such a crucial game?
He's in with a shout, isn't he? He's in with a shout just with the injuries. We picked up, I think, Roderick's away, and just with the injuries, we've got to be considering, haven't we? I'd expect to see him, if he doesn't start, I'd expect to see him at some point. It's a crucial game, but, they all are, we're in the second half of the season. We're 4 points behind. We need to make up that gap. We can't let it grow. So I think these are all crucial games for us at the moment, and I'd expect to see Matt at some point out there. We're a bit more settled at the back, which is good. I think. We expect to see Hart, Cameron Vickers, and Starfelt, Juranovic at right back, and left back Scales or Taylor. That kind of gives us a solid base, doesn't it? And it's the midfield and the front three that's going to experience the disruption, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's it. When we signed Hatate, and I think it looked as if so many options in here. The manager's going to have a headache in that time. We've then got Tommy Roderick going away with Australia, won't be available. We've got Ideguchi, who Ange at first look thought was okay at the weekend, but he's confirmed yesterday he's still very sore, so probably isn't going to be an option for us. And obviously Callum McGregor. We'll come on to talk about Callum because there's mixed things, mixed signals. It would be nice to have him back sooner rather than later, but it is an injury that could be a real concern and could be a lengthy one out. But we'll come on to Callum McGregor. But I think the balance that Ange will be thinking about is whether he goes for two more defensive type midfielders tomorrow evening and one attacking midfielder that gives you the option off the bench, maybe of O'Reilly, or whether he just fires him right in and goes with Hatate, O'Reilly, and I'd probably say near Beaton in that midfield for me, Lawrence, if I was picking my three.
Yeah, I think Beaton's your number 6 when Callum's not there, isn't he? The last few games he's played, he's really excelled in a position and given a chance. So, yeah, I think Beaton takes one of the positions. Hatate another, and it's just whether it's O'Reilly or McCarthy, whether you're going to play the two defensive or go more attacking at Tynecastle. You know, we saw McCarthy giving a wee bit of it back. we might need that, you know, with some of the abuse or competitive tackles that
we'll come on to
players
talk
have
about
been exposed to. You know what I mean? So we might need a bit more steel in that midfield. But listen, maybe Hatate and O'Reilly have that steel. I don't know. You know, they're both new to the club. It'll be great to have Jota back. You know, yeah, hopefully Forrest and Abada.
Yeah, Jota for me goes right in at the team. I know he came on as a sub at the weekend, but I definitely think he's a flair player for us that can change games. As you touched on there, Lawrence, as a settled back four, but we seem to be, have that spine worked out between, I imagine it'd be Vickers and Starfelt. Right back, for me, I actually thought Ralston looked a wee bit rusty at the weekend. I don't know if that was just the time out. He certainly, he scored an absolutely cracking goal when we were last through here at Tynecastle. But for me, I just stick with Juranovic there. At left back, though, I think there could be a wee bit of a question asked, because I thought Liam Scales played very well at the weekend. I mean, you're maybe needing a bit extra height. Hearts are a very physical team, as we know. Scales put a cracking ball in for J.K. Marcus's goal, and a bit extra height and a bit more of a physical presence than Greg Taylor. Although Taylor brings a good balance to the side, it might be the type of game that suits Big Scalesy.
That's I suppose the defensive position that's not nailed down. Since Taylor's injury, I don't think he's looked the same. But although Scales attack, a couple of crosses put in, just brilliant. I mean, he made the Giacomakis' goal with that cross. Gives a bit extra height, but I thought, the last 20 minutes or so, Alloa were getting a lot down the right hand side. I don't think he's as defensively sound as a left back as Taylor is, but that's probably the only position out the back four that you're thinking who's going to play. I think Juranovic, as you said, he's just going to come in, and I think Tory looked rusty. I think just Juranovic starts in front of him. I think that's it. And whether it's we do look at Scales as giving us a bit more, or depending, maybe Giacomakis starts. He scored a good goal outside there. I'm not too sure. I would expected him to do more against Alloa, but maybe Ange sees Scales as something that can feed crosses into him.
Abada as another player, obviously scored an absolutely cracking goal at the weekend, Lawrence. Really good hit. We saw him get a lot of joy playing through the middle against St Johnstone. It'll be a very different game tomorrow night to what the game was at McDermott Park. I do expect Hearts to be quite physical. I do imagine they'll squeeze us a good bit. They might not get that space. In terms of that, J.K. Maka scored a cracking goal at the weekend, took it really well. He was running about, really pressing hard at times, which was good to see. But, is it a badder for you through the middle, or do you stick with Giacomakis? Because Giacomakis, we've paid big money for. He's came in at the weekend. He probably needs a run of games in the team, and really this should be his time to shine for Celtic.
He's a real stop-start season. Scores a cracking goal, misses a few chances. I mean, the 1-on-1 with the keeper, you've got to score and make the keeper make a save, haven't you? And he does neither. Maybe it is minutes he needs, but when you look at Leo Abada, the return on goals and assists from him is phenomenal for such a young player. If he'd come through a youth system, we'd be raving about him. But
it's in all 4 competitions as well, I think, Lawrence.
Aye, it's across the standards, isn't it? It's not just against the small teams he does it. Giacomakis is a wee bit more physical though, isn't he? But I'd expect Hearts to come out a bit. I think maybe the speed of Abada, allied with Jota and Forrest speed, is maybe what's going to pay more dividends. So, yeah, I would start Abada in front of him. That is depending how Abada's injury is. I know he also had to leave the park with an injury, so although he maybe training, he may be a bit sore. So I don't know, if there's doubts about him or how he's going to, his injury, how it's bearing up just now in training. Maybe it is Giakoumakis that starts.
It really depends, and it gives you a real headache when it comes to two options off the bench, Lawrence, because if we're talking about there, the balance between O'Reilly and whether it'll be O'Reilly or McCarthy in midfield, I think I'm in total agreement with you. Beaton and Hatate are going to be shoo-ins to play tomorrow night, but whether it's one of those two guys, it becomes with the balance of that when you're bringing off the bench, because it's likely if you're to start O'Reilly really in midfield, you're not really going to have an option that can come on and probably change the game unless you're 2-3-0 up and what you just kind of see it out. And that also maybe goes for up front too. If we start with either or playing up top, it is probably gives us a very different option coming off the bench. But Hearts will be well up for this. I imagine John Souttar might return to the team, and this could be his game that he gets his move permanently. Obviously, there's been a pre-contract deal done with Rangers, but if he comes in, this could be his game to say, come and get me right now. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be tricky. But did you see enough in Giakoumakis at the weekend that you thought this guy can kick on from here? Because his comments after the game, he's spoken a lot. He's saying the season starts now for him here. Did you see enough in his game? Obviously, he scored. You've touched on that one there, Lawrence, where he goes through one-on-one with the goalie. And I think he's trying to do his a Dixie Deans impression without hitting the net, because he's doing all the shimmies, etc. But didn't really know what he was doing at that point in time. And it was kind of kept quiet really after that. It was Maeda really coming up with the chances for us after that.
Thought it was a really, really mixed performance from him. I mean, it was cracking ball from Scales, but it still needs to be finished. He's done it well. Couple of good runs. I don't really think he works the centre halves, but I appreciate they're sitting deep in banks of four. A couple of times the ball's bouncing off him. His second touch is a tackle. He misses a 1-on-1. So really mixed, but he's not had a huge run of games. But against Alaba, he's a big money signing for his top scorer in the Dutch league. You're expecting him to come in and really might think, well, we've got a player here. This is it. And I don't think he kind of moved up to. I think it's currently sitting at third choice. So I don't think he's moved up to second choice striker or first choice in that performance. But we're going to need him over these 3 games, So I suppose for him, the season starts here. He really needs to shows what he can do. But am I convinced that he, on him in that shown against Alaba? Not. I still think there's questions about.
Yeah, well, Maeda again. He was getting into the right positions. I thought Giakoumakis got into the right positions at times. It was just hitting the back of the net, and Ange said after the game, had we taken our chances, it would have been a lot more comfortable. I'm totally agreeing with that. I thought the second half for me, Lawrence, became quite scrappy. It looked as though we were quite happy just to kind of see it out at 2-0 until Alaba scored, and we looked a wee bit under the cosh. They had a good chance when they broke forward. It came down that Celtic left-hand side, as you touched on there. But I think had we taken our chances at the weekend, it would have been a lot more comfortable for us.
Never looked like a game we're going to lose, but see it 2-0, I was like, just see this game out and don't get anyone else injured. You forget, Salmon could have been off his elbow. The tackle or the shoulder charge on McGregor could have been a red card. Iraguchi should have been a red card. So you're looking, there's at least 3 red cards in there. And for me, the tackle on Jota, when he's 60 seconds apart, the boys, he's just went in to do Jota from behind. For me, that's been a red. At least a yellow. McCarthy picks up a yellow for a very similar challenge. And I can't believe that we both ended up with 1 yellow card each when one team has 3 players having to leave the field because of injury.
Yeah, the refereeing performance at the weekend from Don Robertson was completely abysmal. He was totally incompetent.
I thought you were going to say expected.
Well, at times we're getting this level of refereeing from referees that referee our games. How many times can you fit referee in a sentence there, by the way? The level of refereing at times is just utterly incompetent, and it was absolutely shocking at the weekend. Ange didn't get sucked in too much with it. He said in his Celtic TV interview yesterday, Lawrence, that it should have been dealt with on the park. I do imagine Celtic are raising questions behind closed doors, because this the treatment of our players is utterly appalling, and that the weekend was nothing more than imposing, violence from Barry Ferguson's side against us.
Yeah, totally. Listen, hopefully they're doing it behind closed doors, but it doesn't seem to be paying any dividends. It's not unexpected we've ended up with serious injuries. Well, in fact, I'm surprised we've got so few serious injuries this season, given some of the tackles that have been allowed to go by referees. So the club need to do something. And for Ange to speak up, he's on record as saying he doesn't speak out about referees, but something's really got to him if he's come out and said, well, this should be.
Giakoumakis touched on it as well in his comments after the game too. Yeah,
it's good to see him giving out and calling out. But listen, anyone that watches that game and didn't think they were overstepping the mark or were told to leave something on the players, they're watching a different game from me.
No, I thought they completely overstepped the mark. I mean, the challenge in Adiguchi is absolutely horrendous. I mean, you can watch that as many times as you like, and it gets worse and worse every time. And when
he makes contact, he's got both feet off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Porter's got a red card. No contact. It's just baffling the decision. As you say, the more often you watch it, you're kind of going. God knows what's going through the ref's head. Surely he's seen it's studs up into his ankle. He's out of control. Is it a definition of a red card? Yes. Does the ref know the rules? I'd say he does know the rules. Why haven't they been applied? Is probably the question you've got to come to. Or even Cal Mack's head knock. He's seen it's a head injury and he doesn't immediately stop the game. Does he know the rules? Does he know that head knock stop a game? Yes. Why doesn't it apply them? It's just mind-boggling.
And even in the 2 yellows, Lawrence, the Celtic player that got booked, it's consistency for me in a referee's performance. And, again, right after that, similar challenge took place and no booking. And it's just something that the referees across the country are just absolutely hopeless at, is keeping consistency in their game. They'll give one decision one way, another they won't.
Even before it, when York was doing it, was really similar to challenge. And it's just, it was just a complete failure to apply the rules. And I don't think whether he's a professional ref or semi-pro is going to change that. The refs are trained in the rules and in their understanding of the rules. I'm sure he knows the rules. He just didn't apply them. You mean, look at Colin Osama. He has a feel for Welsh, and then the elbow goes up into his face. It's not, and he claims the ref is looking at the ball. You're looking. This is sending off all day long.
Yeah, no, totally agree with you. It'll be interesting to see how this progresses, because as you say, Ange has kind of got a previous history. I've not really seen a lot about referees, but something really must have got to him at the weekend to come out and say something about it in his interview. And we'll see what happens tomorrow night, because I think it's John Beaton that's in the middle tomorrow night, and we know his previous performances in charge of Celtic games. Moving on from referees, in terms of Callum McGregor, just look at the challenge in isolation away from the decision made from it, Lawrence. It looked like a bad one. People were doing the old lip reading when he was given the captain's armband to Joe Hart. The news looked a wee bit more positive from Ange yesterday, and he was feeling a bit better. They'd been, texting each other, etc. What was your perspective on this? Do you think Callum McGregor's going to be out the side for a while? Because that's what it looked like at first glance. But do you think there's a possibility that we get him back a bit quicker with possible mask on?
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing that's going to get him back quicker, isn't it? Getting an Edgar Davids style mask on him to protect his face. I mean, watching the game with PGD in the studio, looking at it, the boy's jumped, but I don't think he's jumping to try and header that ball. I think he's jumping into Callum to try and hurt him. It's his shoulder straight into his face. You watch that and you think, well, the boy's definitely not trying to header the ball. If he has, he's jumped way too high for that. It's just a really, really, really bad tackle. And I think, before the game, we've been talking about whether McGregor should play or not, and we both said, rest him, we can't afford to lose him. And, we played him and we've lost him. And I don't know how that's going to affect Callum as a player. You know, it is a really, really nasty challenge and head knock. You know, the next time he's going in challenging for a ball, does it affect him? Who knows? But yeah, I would expect to see him out for a few weeks anyway.
His presence, Lawrence, in the team is absolutely massive. We know that from watching Celtic this season. He's a real warrior for Celtic. He's stepped into the role as captain and filled the big boots of Scott Brown. Perfectly, I would say, so far. In terms of who is going to be out for that wee while, if it's going to be 4 weeks, say, if it's going to be the maximum, possibly 8 weeks, can he still have an influence in that dressing room? I think he can. I think he's still a big figure around the club. He's a man that leads by example. What other players are we going to need to look to, and who would be your captain tomorrow night? But I do expect Callum McGregor to be out tomorrow night, obviously. Is it Joe Hart, just due to his experience in English football? He's obviously played for his country, England, over 70 times. He's won Premier League, played at the highest level, Champions League. Is he the guy you go to, or do you go for somebody like Neil Beaton, who's obviously been at the club for nine years, I think, now?
9 years now, yeah.
Big Nero is heading for that testimonial. Didn't think we'd be saying that, but he is heading for it. Do you go for somebody like that? And again, you've got guys like McCarthy in the dressing room, who's an experienced head. You're going to need to rely on people like that, really, getting you through this spell if Callum's not on the pitch.
Listen, I think McCarthy, I think Beaton's got the number 6 jersey just now. So it's between him and Hart, and I'd probably go with Hart, just because Hart, he got the armband off of Callum again, and just the level of his experience. He's got the whole game in front of him as well, isn't he? It seems to really talk the team through the games, doesn't he? It seems to be very vociferous. So I think that's a good quality in a captain. Near Beaton, I think we're really going to be relying on him. And thankfully, he had a run of games in midfield, and he looked great, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
I think it starts in front of McCarthy. I really like James, but I think the only way James is going to start against Hearts is if we do go a wee bit more defensive, or maybe I just went, I really need a bit more protection in here from my players, and the refs aren't going to give it. I'm going to need to put a player in that can mix it a wee bit.
It showed a great piece of kind of unity as well, Lawrence. You spoke about McCarthy coming on to the park on Saturday, and no other Celtic player had, went in for Niang, but McCarthy thought, I'm going to give him a bit of his own medicine back here, because we'd seen the horrendous challenge in Adiguchi previous to that, and McCarthy was sitting on just to give him a bit of something back.
Yeah, listen, definitely, the other players were leaving it in all over the park. Not just in the bad challenges where we get injured, but they were collecting players after the ball had went. Whether some people will say that is getting in faces and biting ankles. I'm not too sure biting ankles is allowed in football. I'm not too sure, but it's certainly, to see it after three of your opponent's players have had to leave the park because of injury, and not think there's anything strange about that. I'm trying to remember a game the last time 3 players for the one side had to leave because of injuries sustained for the opposition. I'm really struggling. And not to even reflect on that, say, well, maybe the team was going to be a bit hard here. And listen, 2 of the challenges are just, straight reds, aren't they, for McGregor and Ideguchi. Those challenges are bad. The boys tear him late and he's get injured. It's a yellow, but not to think that your players have overstepped the mark. There was at least, with Connor Salmon, there should have been at least 3 red cards for his team. Maybe Alloa will play like that every week, or maybe it's the famous song from a few years ago, same old Alloa, always cheating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely in that one. One of our comments here, can McCarthy come on about looking for him? He certainly did. But I think this from William Kenny is really important too. Celtic do need to keep their discipline tomorrow night, because I don't think John Beaton will shy away, Lawrence, if we do get stuck in. We saw again, on Callum McGregor, funnily enough, one of the people on Super Scoreboard last night was that one of the offenders who probably should have saw red in the opening game of the season, and another horrendous challenge on our captain Callum McGregor, but didn't. Tomorrow night is very, very crucial to us. I know a lot of people are looking towards the 2nd of February, but tomorrow night is going to be really big, and Celtic should probably want a bit of revenge for that game at the start of the season, because on the night, it was a kind of botched together team. A lot of players who played at Tynecastle in the first game of the season won't be starting for Celtic tomorrow evening. Probably want a bit of revenge, but it's going to be tough, because Hearts are in a great run of form and have been playing very well this season.
Yeah, we could have won that first game, with the goal chopped off, didn't we? As you say, a bad.
And I thought we played very well. I thought we played
Yeah.
very well in the game.
But, you know, Bobby Madden seemed to quite happy to let a few tackles go that you would have thought maybe merited more action. And expect Beaton to be just the same. But as you've touched on with McCarthy, you know, Celtic ended up the same amount of bookings as Alloa, and I think we were down as committing more fouls. Watching the game, you're kind of going, you know, at least that's real. The worrying thing is they seem to be replicated game after game after game. So we do need to hold our discipline because John Beaton would have no issue in booking us for a first foul and Hearts for their 10th, you know. So, yeah, we do really need to keep it disciplined. And whether we do need players that are a bit more steel and able to give it back at times, you just need to be aware of, you know, the referees won't be shy with the cards with us.
No, they definitely won't. You know, the centre half pair that night, Lawrence, was Beaton and Starfelt. Now, both of those guys are very likely to play tomorrow night, but, you know, the near Beaton that we saw at the end of July compared to the near Beaton that we're seeing at the end of January is a very different type player. As you mentioned earlier, he certainly raised his game because at centre half, I think for the past 4 or 5 years, we've not seen the player that we once had under, Neil Lennon when Beaton first signed, but he certainly came into his game again. And, you know, Rodgers played him in that role and he did very well there. He played in the 5-1 game. I think he started the game against Manchester City in the 3 each. He is a player that we can really depend on and needs to show up tomorrow night, isn't he? Yeah,
but without doubt, I think his career maybe suffered from his versatility, you know, or just drop him back to centre half. He's a centre half. Sign him as a midfielder. He does his best games in his 9 years as a midfielder. He's probably had more as a centre half though, you know, and it's probably says something about sometimes the quality of centre halves we've been signing and just their one of lucky injuries, etc. But Beaton's a guy that, you know, we really need to step up. And I think last year we were talking about who could replace Scott Brown at the beginning of the season. I was thinking, you know, I'd come out and said, you know, I think Neil Beaton's the guy. I think he's the guy that can do the defensive job for us. We've got a few good number sixes at the club. Unfortunately, we're missing Callum, so yeah, we really need Neil to come in and, you know, excel to move the ball quickly. You know, he's got great range of passing. He used to score the odd screamer. Hopefully, we'll see one from him at Tynecastle. But yeah, it's the second half of the season. We're looking for guys to stand up and be counted. None so more than near Beaton. I think he'll relish, you know, getting a run as the number 6, and I think he'll take it on his stride.
Yeah, he knows what it's all about. You know, he's been there. He's won countless trebles with Celtic. He's won, you know, many a league championship as well. Knows about these games. Knows about this part of the season, and hopefully, you know, tomorrow night we get a big performance out of him. On the Alloa game as a whole, Lawrence, what was your take on the performance? I thought, you know, we got into the right areas at times. You know, Maeda missed a lot of chances. We've spoken about Giakoumakis. Probably put the game to bed very early on in the game. I don't think the disruption of losing, you know, the 3 players helped. I think Ange would have probably liked to get a bit of rotation with the subs, get some minutes into other guys' legs. He got minutes into legs at the weekend, obviously. It was only our second game back, so in terms of the side that he played, you know, I had Bolton last Thursday. I thought it'd be a kind of hybrid team. It was 5 changes that he'd made to the side. You know, players do need game time coming back off the break. What was your thoughts on the whole game? I did think the second half was scrappy, but I just think that was due to our game plan probably being disrupted by the subs and, you know, just by the opposition tactics more than anything rather than ourselves. Had we, you know, as I say, I think had we taken our chances in the game, would have been a lot more comfortable.
Listen, I think it was a game we were always winning. No surprise, the level of opposition. Played in AstroTurf, which I think just shouldn't happen in professional football. The team itself was disrupted from the start. You know, Ange's on record saying he doesn't like to make a lot of changes, but just about every area of the team there was a change in, wasn't there? So the injuries and the refereeing really didn't help us. Missed a lot of chances, but you know, you can only miss a lot of chances if you create a lot, I suppose. But a bit of disappointment from some of the boys that came in. You know, I was hoping some of them would nail down the position, and you go, you know what? Maybe Scales is hoping to see a bit better performance from him defensively, saying, you know what, he's a left back now, because I think Taylor has struggled since his injury. Giakoumakis, I want to see more of him. You know, I want to think, you know, this guy is an option when things aren't working, because I think Maeda and Kyogo look similar as strikers. And I thought Giakoumakis looks a bit different. I was hoping to see more that would suggest that, when things aren't working, this guy can come on and really mix it up for us and offer us something different. So, it's a cup game. You just need to be in the next round. We're there. The worst thing about it was, without doubt, the injuries. And no matter what, some commentators saying that's nothing to do with our players, whether they pull out of tackles or don't. The injuries aren't down to the actions of our players. It is simply down to the actions of the referee refusing to clamp down early doors and tackles that were overstepping the mark. And the Alloa players who were putting in tackles that, were beyond the rules.
Yeah, no, absolutely, totally agree with you. It will be interesting to see, what starting 11 we're lining up with tomorrow night, and how fouls are deemed by John Beaton. I think it's going to be one of these games you might look at in the season as one of the definers. It's the end of January, Sunday lights at Tynecastle. It's always been a tough place to go, Lawrence, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, without the injuries, but even more so now. But we've really got ourselves in a position where Ange will need to look at the team and see who he can trust and who's going to step up for us. And every confidence I'm in to pick the right team and get the result. Did the
Tough without the fans as well, mate. Or without the normal number of fans at Tynecastle. There's going to be empty pockets in that stand.
Yeah, another strange thing they do in that Roseburn stand is once it reaches capacity, the police stop letting people in. Which even if you've probably got a normal match ticket, there's potential that you might not get in if the stand reaches capacity. And it looks so far. And that the side that's going to be to my right hand side tomorrow night, hoping that I do get in the stand doesn't obviously reach capacity before I get to the Roseburn stand, is going to be absolutely empty. I really don't get it from a financial perspective. Hearts are going to lose out a lot of money. They obviously feel as if they've got a bit more advantage cutting the allocation, but it's going to be tough. Tomorrow night is going to be tough. I think some people are looking too far ahead to the 2nd of February. I think it's just one game at a time for me in this one. Celtic TV did the interview that we spoke about earlier with Ange yesterday. There's different snippets coming out of it. One of these comments that I thought was important to highlight was, we'll stay alert and agile. There still could be some things that happen. What's your interpretation of that, Lawrence? I do still expect players to go out the door at Celtic. He's made that very clear that a couple of the younger guys probably looking at opportunities to shift them. There is the Vasilis Barkas link with Sheffield United, which looks to have collapsed. It was reported on by one of the newspapers that he's on 20 grand a week at Celtic. Celtic were looking for Sheffield United to pick up the bulk of that wage with a 2.5 million option to buy, but it looks as though that one's fallen through. Do you expect more movement? I do certainly expect more movement out the door. Do you expect possibly a few ins? I know we're maybe looking at some loans possibly.
Well, with Callum and Iraguchi out unexpectedly for a period of time, maybe Ange's looking at that and thinking, I actually need a wee bit more cover than I thought. The way the referee's going, we're more likely to lose players in the second half of the season as well if the standard continues. He's maybe looking up front and going, well, where are my options for a striker that can change something? It'd be silly for us not to look out there if someone outstanding becomes available, whether on loan or perm, and take advantage of it. But I think the club have handled this January's transfer window better than they have a January transfer window for a long time. We're not at the stage of desperation signings. We can actually take our time and, we're not rushing out to sign somebody on loan. We can say, right, only if he's right does he come in. I'd probably expect, maybe another striker to come in and more cover in midfield, just off the back of the injuries. On the way out, Barkas deal looks to have collapsed. It's no secret that we want to move him. Ball and Golly, we also want to move. So, there's a few players that we want to move out. The loans will be interesting. It'll be great to see Montgomery, if he can get a move, get out and get some loan time. I think he's done well so far. Similarly, Iragidi, Shaw, it'd be good to see them getting game time. Obviously, Hazard's away to Helsinki, but I don't really see him coming back unless he's an outstanding time for them. I've got a lot of keepers at the club. But getting the young players out on loan and getting them experience, I think will stand us in good stead, and we can have a look at what they're going to offer when they come back. I know Robertson's doing well. Player we've been linked is Dembele from Peterborough. Be interesting to see if that happens, and does that have an effect on Karamoko then, if his big brother was to sign for us? But all in all, I think we're in the position that we can take advantage of the transfer window now, rather than under pressure to get deals done in the last day.
Yeah, it certainly puts us in a better position in terms of just approaching it, Lawrence. At a point where we seemed quite comfortable with what we brought in terms of 3 boys from the J League. We obviously brought Johnny Kenny over from Sligo. We now seem to have been intent on getting that attacking midfield option. Matt O'Reilly, I noticed when he signed, it's one of the guys linked to the agency, which Ange Postecoglou's agent, Frank Trimboli, is in. So certainly a definite Ange deal there. We don't need to worry about Dudu Dahan being involved in anything like so, which has been something similar in previous years. But in terms of that, it's just about looking at the transfer window and reacting to it in a reactionary way. I think that's important now, because at this point in time, if Callum McGregor is going to be out for a long time, does that mean our plans change and looking at another midfielder? I think Jackie Makis is going to come good for us. I really hope that he does. He started, I think, 3 games and scored twice. Yeah, maybe the level of opposition people will call into question, but I still think there's a player there. I don't think he'd become a bad player overnight. I know he was over in the Division, was top goal scorer over there. His season's not really started for me yet, and I think this is the time to probably judge him if he kicks on from now. It would do him the world a good. I think Lawrence, if he bagged a goal at Tynecastle tomorrow night, and we got the victory. But in terms of Montgomery, who you touched on there, we've seen him used this season at times. We've seen him played at left backs, came in the left wing. He was important in the game over in Alkmaar. What do you think his preferred position is, and what kind of team would you like for him to go to? Because I think if he went to St Johnstone or somewhere, would that style of football really suit the player we're probably trying to mould? No, for me.
I think for him, it's maybe a little bit like Chris Ayer. We need to have decided what his best position is before we loan him. We were saying to Kelly, we play him at centre half. That's where we want him developed as. So we need to set up that kind of deal, don't we? It's kind of. I think that's definitely what we need to be doing. If it's St Johnstone, they're in free fall, aren't they? If he's going to play at left back, he's going to get a lot of minutes and a lot of experience there. So I think it needs to be somebody in the top league. If he goes out, I think he done okay for us when he played. So it looks as if there could be a player in there, but it's just keeping him at that level, isn't it? I'd be happy to see him go to St Johnstone. Callum Davidson won 2 cups last year. He obviously, he's having a nightmare this season. I would say he looks as if he's a manager that kind of knows what he's doing. And I think if the agreement's there that St Johnstone playing when's fit, it's top level of Scotland football, it'd be a good move for him. And it lets him just get minutes in his legs away from the pressure of playing for Celtic.
Yeah, even a team, like Inverness Cali Thistle, I know their championship club just do, but they're on a run just now, Lawrence, to play attacking football that might be a bit better suited to Adam's game. Where do you think his preferred position is going to be? Is it going to be left back? We've seen him start up at Pittodrie. He puts a great ball over for Jota to get the winner, or on that left wing. I don't know about his defensive capabilities yet, and again, I think that loan deal would do Adam Montgomery the world of good.
If we see him at left back, he definitely needs to work defensively. If it's left wing, there's talk of putting Mikey Johnson out. I wouldn't put my head of Johnson as a left winger at the moment. So I think we'll probably decide he's a left back, just giving him where we've played him. And I think it's just getting him out and getting him the experience there and seeing if he can develop his defensive abilities. Hopefully he does get his move. Similar with Johnson, it would have done him good to get out and get some goals, but we've picked up some injuries. We've got some attacking players away in international duty. He's maybe going to miss out on his move unless Aberdeen come in with a fairly decent loan fee. So would it suit him to go up there and maybe do a Christie? build up a bit and get his confidence back and get back in amongst the goals, then come back to his refreshed, hopefully, because, he's another player that's had a lot of time out with injuries, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he just kind of needs to catch a break, and that kind of move, I would say, would definitely be the one. I think if we were looking to get Mikey Johnson out on loan, for me, Lawrence, it would have been Hibs for Aberdeen to go to either Stephen Glass or Sean Maloney. And obviously one of the added benefits if he goes up to Pittodrie is he knows Johnny Hayes, he knows Scott Brown. He's going up there to guys that he knows. I do imagine that Scott Brown's probably been in dialogue with Stephen Glass. I think that was one of the things included in the report that came out in the newspaper on him, that Scott Brown had given a glowing report. I think if you do get Johnson in a form and he can keep himself fit, he could be an important player if he comes back. And I don't want to write him off just now. I know a lot of Celtic fans probably are, but after injury, I think he does just need that run of games. I don't think he's going to get that at Celtic. I do think it's probably time for him to go out to somewhere like Pittodrie, to go to Aberdeen and get that run of games. Yeah,
it looks as if he needs to build up a bit.
That's what Danielle said in the comments. Yep.
Yeah, it's like, look at Paddy Klamala when he went away and figured out he wasn't competing. He built up. Christie done it up there when he went to Pittodrie on loan. Mikey, when he started, what was that goal every 4 games his first 2 seasons? I think it was like 6 and 24 and 6 and 24. It was almost identical. And then injuries hit. But it'd be great to see him make it. He's come through the boys' club and through the youths. You're going, it would be brilliant to see him make it. He just seems to have lost that wee bit of confidence just now. I thought he had a good League Cup final. And recently has been drawn 2 players to him, gone by them. Unfortunately, his crossings not been of the standard we wanted, or his shooting. So he just needs to get that end product, whether it's a cross or a decent shot back. And I think we're back to having a player. And I think it's probably is going to be served at best out on loan.
Yeah, totally. But again, as you said, the squad is stretched, and obviously Maeda's away in international. Jota's just back from injury. Hopefully he gets a run of games. Abada came off at the weekend, hopefully not too serious. Ayeti is out with the hamstring, I think, still. So there isn't a lot of options in those attacking positions, and I think it does only at this point, Lawrence, take one injury to put us again into a place where we've seen that in midfield just now. Obviously, guys will come back from internationals, but it's this few run of games we're looking at, and probably at this point in time, I think and should be holding off and letting Mikey Johnson away, because for a game like Saturday against Dundee United, he could be an important player to have on the bench, probably.
I said, he can beat players, can't he? Often he beats them for fun, and then they have to put 2 players on him, and it's making space. But yeah, it's just his end product's been lacking since he came back from his last injury. I get what you're saying. The squad is stretched, but I know Yota's just back, but you're hoping to keep him, Abada, Forrest fit. It's keeping players fit, isn't it? I think we've got enough just now to let him go on loan if we weren't at such a bad risk of injury, shall we say, just the way this season's turned out.
Yeah, I think if had you avoided those type of injuries at the weekend and whatnot, we probably would be a lot more comfortable letting them go. But we'll see how that progresses. Tomorrow night, just to go back to it very quickly before we kind of finish, Lawrence, we're speaking about guys like Jota, Forrest, Abada's there, Hatate. These are all very good football players. If we get a real performance out of all these guys, I'm fairly confident we can win the game tomorrow night. I don't know what your thoughts are on that one.
Listen, we've got the best defence in Scotland. The defence is fairly settled. I think if we score goals, we'll win. Jota, again, it was only Alloa, but it looked as if he'd never been away. Having him back's got to give everyone a lift. It's really how that midfield engine performs, isn't it? It's can Beaton step in, and the thing is, Cal Mack moves it a bit quicker in transition, doesn't he? Beaton's just that wee bit slower. But if you've got a front three of Jota, Forrest, Abada, you're lightning quick there, aren't you? Maybe it does start with Giakoumakis, gives him another chance, but you'll expect to see him at centre forward at some point during the game, whether he starts or comes off the bench. Between Jota, Forrest, Abada and Giakoumakis, should be enough to get a couple of goals? I'd say so. Midfield, you're looking back. what can he give us? Well, O'Reilly's allegedly a goal-scoring midfielder. It'll be great to see what he actually does when he plays. Because I think we're calling on him a wee bit earlier than expected, but hopefully, he has a debut of Kyogo proportions.
No, absolutely. I think Giakoumakis, the goal at the weekend will help him, and he can certainly, build off of that. And he was getting into the right areas. He was certainly pressing the game well. It's just about continuing all that. I know the good things in his game to continue to get into the right positions and hopefully stick the ball in the back of the net. And from his comments, do your talking in the park by all means, but it looks as if he is raring to go, and that's definitely what we need. Paid decent enough money for him, top goal scorer last season. We need him to step up tomorrow night. I hope he does step up, Lawrence.
Yeah, listen, what was also brilliant was he was prepared to speak out. There's not many other players that have actually kind of spoke out to the levels he did. I think the main question mark over Giakoumakis, brilliant season last season, but prior to that, his goal scoring record wasn't brilliant. I think one season he had like 1 in 30 or something. I think only once before last season did he get into double figures. So, yeah, we do really need to step up and score goals for us, and hopefully he can do that with us. But Etienne's he's go well from Scales' cross. So, yeah, let's see what tomorrow brings. But, I think we've won that 2-0, 3-1. I think we'll go out. Well, main worry, I suppose, isn't Celtic scoring goals. It's really, my main worry is John Beaton. What is he going to let pass for tackles?
Well, I think we'll probably be able to tell in the first 5 minutes tomorrow night what he lets go and maybe clamps down on. I'm looking forward. I think O'Reilly probably will feature at some point as well tomorrow night, Lawrence, whether it's as a starter or whether off the bench. But again, we've signed a player here who has played a lot of first team football for MK Dons and should be there to go. And hopefully, he comes in and he plays as well as Hatate did last week against Hibs and gives us a performance. Because again, we've heard great things about him, but tomorrow night it's a big game, and when he comes in, hopefully does the job for us.
Yeah, it's the midfield that's got the most disruption. Callum's our best player by a mile, isn't he? So it really is how
absolutely.
we react to not having him there. You hope, Beaton and Maeda, I would think both of those are nailed on to start. So it's either do we go a wee bit more defensive with McCarthy?
Beaton and Hatate.
Beaton and Hatate, or do we start McCarthy? I don't think we do start McCarthy up front. We save him. I think we need to start just a wee bit more attacking and start O'Reilly.
Yeah, I think, as you say, it might be better just to kind of attack the game first, try and kill it off, and then you can maybe, bring on more defensive type players. Beaton will give the back four that protection they need. You've spoken about how solid they've been this season, but we're just in a far better place going here than we were at the start of the season. And hopefully, it's been tough games against Hearts this season. Obviously, beat through their 2-1, 3-2 at Celtic Park League Cup, 1-0 with the dodgy goal that people seem to be talking about for weeks and weeks. They'll be a hard team to break down, but if we're going to win this championship, this is a game that we need to go and win, because the gap is 4 points and it's a big, big game. And I do think we've got the minerals to go and do it.
Without doubt, it was interesting. That goal was one of the few instances in Scotland that leads to we must have VAR in. Whereas you can have a game like Saturday and there's no one shouting for VAR. But I think we'll win it. It'll be a better fight, but I think 3-1, 2-0. I think we've got enough to go and win it. If we turn up, I think we'll win. We've got a solid defence. Hearts might sneak a goal. Don't see them scoring any more than one. If we score two, we'll definitely win.
Just back to the transfers, just quickly, Lawrence. One of the other quotes that came out from Ange was, our planning is going to schedule so far, and hopefully that continues to the end of the window. So far at this point in time, before we enter this game, I'm in total agreement with you. I think we've acted very well in this January window, reacting to the injuries. If McGregor's going to be out for a while, and Ayeti's another one, we're basically got Kyogo, depending on how long he'll be out for, we're relying on Giakoumakis, and then whether it's Sabada through the middle or then Maeda could come back. What else would you possibly like to see added to Celtic in January if the right player comes up?
Well, maybe left back Lee Buchanan at Derby. The talks that they might go into liquidation, which as we know, the players can then walk away for free. Apparently, we've been tracking them for a while. Neither Taylor or Scales seems to really have nailed that down, do they? So if the right player comes up, that's better than both of them, maybe look to get him in. Another striker, both Kyogo and Giacomakis have injuries. I don't think Ayeti's going to make it, is he? With us, I think if he was fit, we'd have been trying to move him on. So we've got Maeda, Kyogo, Giacomakis. Yeah, I'd like to see another striker. And midfield, it's just with Callum going. You don't get too many Callum McGregors out there, though, do you? And we've just got a few in, but I take it, either Gucci's injured, but it's just seeing what's possible out there, I suppose. It's, I think Janssen was on record as when he left saying, he had the chance of getting Riedler, but Celtic didn't get the deal done and he went to Liverpool. But if a player of that quality became available to get in just now for Ange, we should be grabbing him.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to conclude, again, obviously we spoke at great length at the start of the show about Wim Jansen. Everyone at ACSOM, I'm sure every Celtic supporter is keeping Wim's family in their thoughts. Again, everybody that played under Wim as his time at Celtic and the accomplice in Murdo McLeod. And, I think you'll probably see a lot of nice tributes come out today and over the next course of the next few days of what he meant to Celtic fans, because he cemented his place in Celtic history. And as long as a Celtic, I'm sure Wim Jansen will never be forgotten. Thanks to everybody who joined us this afternoon for the ACSOM Bulletin. We'll be back tomorrow previewing the Hearts game in the Bulletin, and then there'll be the usual match day coverage. Lawrence, thank you for joining me, and I hope everybody tuned in has a cracking day.